Well, I am excited to teach this class. Jane called me, I don't know, about a month ago, and I thought, I have a degree in home economics, and the last time I was on camera was when I was in college.
And you look just the same.
So I wasn't too excited about the camera part, but okay, it's good. I know a lot of you have freeze dryers, and I'm excited to hear about your experiences, your recipes. Hey, there's a handout in the back, on the back table you're gonna wanna get. But let's wait until we're having samples, and then I wanna hear your ideas and stuff. But if you have questions about my presentation, please raise your hand during the presentation, okay? So, the introduction to freeze-dried food I had was when I was a little girl, and we would go backpacking, and it was a big treat to get Mountain House freeze-dried ice cream and turkey tetrazzini. I just thought those were awesome. And I never would have imagined, fast forward several decades later, that I would be able to have a home freeze dryer in my house. And I have to say, when we got our freeze dryer, it was a little more tricky than they are right now. And I got mine in 2020. They've only gotten better and better. And we went to some neighbor's house in 2019, and they introduced us to their Harvest Right freeze dryer. And she had a lot of allergies, so that was her big thing. She wanted to be able to store food that she was going to be able to eat. And so this was the thing for them. Well, when I asked her how much it was, and it was the same price in 2019, the medium size, about $2,500, that it is right now, the medium size. I thought, wow, $2,500, I can buy a lot of freeze-dried food in number 10 cans for $2,500. Well, fast forward to the pandemic, and trying to buy food started getting kind of weird. And plus, I didn't really like, we did a taste test with our kids, our grown kids, of some of the Emergency Essential, August and Farms, their entrees. And then I made a soup with just stuff that I had in the cupboard, just regular food storage stuff. And we did a taste test. And man, the August and Farms and the Emergency Essentials, they hurt our stomachs, because at that point they were still adding several words you can't even pronounce, right, on the back of the can. And so I thought,
MSG, did they put MSG and stuff?
Worse, yeah. Anyways, 2020, can't get a lot of stuff, and we were living part-time in Arizona and had our house here, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should check into this freeze dryer, because there was the quality of food. We happen to be fortunate and don't have any food allergies, so we can pretty much eat anything clean, without a bunch of stuff in it. So there was the quality of the food, there was the cost of the food, and then there was the way to store it and freeze drying. I had number 10 cans of freeze dried food, and woohoo, 25 to 30 years at its peak still. That's not, it's expired in 25 to 30 years. That's still at its nutritional peak at the expiration date. Mm-hmm. So that was amazing. Anyways, so we bought the freeze dryer, it came, set it up, and went through the protocol, and everything fired up and seemed good. So I began by freeze drying fruit, because I could go to the local store there in Arizona and buy nicked apples and brown bananas, and that's what you want, are brown bananas, because they're the sweetest. And so I started doing that and experimenting, and it didn't cost me much with all my mistakes. The one thing I learned, so this is the, I'm only gonna talk about Harvest Right. There's two other, there's the Blue Alpine, and there's a third one I'm not real familiar with. But
Patriot.
For Patriots?
what's it?
Four Patriots.
Four Patriots, okay, yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but I knew that there was a third one that's really getting the ball rolling there too. So, my trays came with the silicone sheets. You can use parchment too. They're awesome, they wash up, they're super great. So I learned that you could, with bananas and apples, do a layer on the bottom of fruit, and then you can buy this. On the back of your handout, I put a resource page, and this came from Freeze Drying Supplies. You can lay that right on top of those sliced apples and put another layer of sliced apples on. So you can get double the amount. You can only do that with fruits and vegetables that aren't super dense. So like, I haven't done that with carrot dices or carrot, because they're pretty dense. But the apples and the onions, they're a little more porous. And you know, I only grow golden zucchini because I like it better than the green. But right, who's got tons of extra zucchini, and what do you do with it? You put it through your food processor, you freeze dry it, and it's so awesome to have in the winter, and you just dump it in all your soups, all your stews. You can rehydrate it. I have not tried rehydrating it and making banana bread or fritters or anything like that, but it's such a simple way to finally preserve zucchini that you don't have to add Jello to or all the other kind of strange things that people do with zucchini. So that was one trick, was to double layer kind of porous fruits and vegetables.
When I read things about, like, I follow all the freeze drying websites, right? Because I have a really old freeze dryer.
Okay.
There's no electronics on it.
Okay.
No timer,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay.
And I like it. It's maybe a little slower, but I feel like it's gonna have less problems. But you see these videos and people are like laying out their pineapple an inch away from each other. And I'm like, no, you can really pile it up pretty well and it still gets through.
That is a
Don't
really,
treat it like a dehydrator.
that's a really good point, because if you do put more on there, it's just gonna take longer to dry if it is a thicker product. So that's a really good point. And
I
that,
pile my stuff up pretty thick.
pretty tall. The new medium-sized freeze dryers, the mine from 2021 comes with 4 trays. The new medium size, they made the chambers so it holds 5 trays now. So that's pretty cool. You get a whole nother tray of stuff. Another thing besides these grids that I bought from Freeze Drying Supplies are these separators. And I have used these for a few things. You can move them around, so like you can take like the middle section out. It's just a grid thing. And so if you're making like camping food, or you're portioning out meals for something, you can put a pile of your spaghetti noodles mixed in with the sauce right here and have, the serving sizes. You can make fruit bars, you can make cereal bars. You can take, if you eat cereal, let's just say Honey Nut Cheerios and milk. You can mix that, a little bit of milk with the Honey Nut Cheerios, and pour them in here, and you can make your own cereal bars. So these things, they're not too expensive, and I don't use them all the time, but they're pretty handy. One thing I bought off Amazon, and they have silicone molds of all different sizes and shapes. But this has been good to do garlic in things that you just want a little small. So say you do a whole bunch of garlic cubes up and you put them in your jar. You can just take one out and drop it in stir fry or soup or stews or whatever you want the garlic for. It works good for herbs too. So
put it in like olive oil or something, or just straight herbs, straight garlic?
just straight herbs. That's one thing we'll talk about in a little bit, of what not to freeze dry, and things with a lot of oil in them, like pesto. That doesn't freeze dry well at all. Okay, the last thing, and I'm not being sponsored by Freeze Drying Supplies, disclaimer, but these lids are fantastic, because I do a lot of, we try to eat a fair amount of protein, and so I do a lot of meat. And so I just do one layer of meat and put this on and then stick it in the freezer, because I pre-freeze everything I put into my freeze dryer. Because I figure my freezer is already running, so I'm just gonna stick it in there. It takes 12 hours for most things, and then I'm gonna stick it in the freeze dryer and start the freeze drying process. Now, there are some things you might not want to do that with. If you have a cow or access to raw milk and you want to do milk or something super liquidy, you can put the tray into your freeze dryer and you can have it stick out a little bit and you can pour your product on then and just gently scoot it in, and then you can press the freeze button and it will freeze in the freeze dryer. But it takes extra time and extra
I
energy.
was gonna say, do you think it's a little less time if you freeze it first and then?
I think so. Your deep freeze, yeah, it's already cold and you've got all that other frozen stuff around it, so it freezes faster. But when you're trying to move liquid trays, it, depending on where your freeze dryer is, if it's downstairs or, you know, out in the garage or somewhere, it can be kind of tricky. So I only freeze in the freeze dryer for special things like that.
And there's a setting on the newer ones to tell it whether the food is pre-frozen, right?
Yes, there is. Mhm.
So I don't
Yep.
have that, but that's okay.
Yep, just keep going with what you have if it works. Okay, so one of the things I mentioned about getting a freeze dryer was the cost of food. So I just looked online, and this package of dried apples that I did weighs 5 ounces, okay? It cost me $2.50 for this. How much do you think from Walmart their great value freeze-dried
Oh my
apples of
gosh.
5 ounces is right now?
I don't know.
$10.
6, 8.
20, closer to 20.
15, 20?
Ding ding, 15. Yeah, 15. So 6 times the amount that I paid to do this. So if you are if you're into this, because it gets pretty addicting, it's really fun. Our friends, a lot of you know them, the Chadwicks, they were our neighbors up in Bountiful, and they are the ones that had us over to see their freeze dryer. And because Kathy has a bunch of food allergies, they just would freeze dry all their leftovers. So, they'd have leftover Thanksgiving dinner in a bag and, stuff like that. So, the cost of freeze drying, there's the initial cost of the freeze dryer. Yep, gotta get through that. But then after that, you can really make it worth your while quickly. Okay, so then after doing the fruits, I started doing entrees like chili, split pea and ham soup, spaghetti, meat sauce. And I found a company in Utah called Pack Fresh, and they sell all sizes of Mylar bags. So when you get your Harvest Right, it comes with a certain amount of Mylar bags that look like this. They're flat, and your Harvest Right comes with what's called an impulse sealer. Kind of looks like a stapler, but it's got 2 heat bars. And so you put your bag, the top of your bag in there, and you press that down and hold it there for a certain amount of time, and then it seals this up. That comes with the freeze dryer. So this Pack Fresh company, though, they have a lot more variety. And one of the things I decided, because when you get the freeze dryer, you kind of like are thinking, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And it's kind of nice to sort of figure out how many people are in your family. What are your needs? Do you want to have, we're going to have a Fiesta rice as a sample. Do you want to have something on hand that all you have to do is add boiling water and you've got something to feed your kids? So, that's one less trip to the grocery store that you have to make. Well, after I did the fruit and started experimenting with these entrees, then I was like, okay, these flat containers are okay, and they make smaller ones, but I want to make more for camping and backpacking. And so this Pack Fresh has these great ones that have what's called a gusseted bottom. and then they have a Ziploc top. So when you're filling your food, all you have to do is just open it, and I stick a funnel in, and then I just pour the food in, right? And then tamp it down, and then leave myself enough room to zip it, not all the way closed. If you have an impulse sealer, yeah, you're gonna, well, first I forgot, you always wanna use an oxygen absorber. You guys know what these little packets are?
Oxygen absorber.
Yeah, so freeze drying takes out X amount of moisture, most of it. Some products not as much, like pineapple, things with oil. So you still want to put in an oxygen absorber to get out as much more that might be left in there. Because there's 4 elements that ruin food storage. What are they? Heat, oxygen, light, moisture. Exactly. So this takes care of the moisture. It prolongs your food storage longer. Okay.
How full would you fill that Mylar bag?
So I would fill it to probably right about here.
And then, I mean, give me an example of what type of thing you would fill it with, and then how many people would that feed?
Okay. Good question. I would fill it with chili or spaghetti, or if I was making an entree, right? Scrambled eggs and peppers and onions, and when you add ham, that shortens the 25-year ham, cheese, anything that has fat in it, that shortens the life of it. No one knows, they can't say for sure how much, so that's why you need to test your food storage every once in a while too, right? And I think it's worth it to add the better flavorings in there and to use your stuff. Especially if you make it so you like it, right? Because you get to season it. So if you like ghost pepper hot sauce, you know, you can have it that way instead of super mild with nothing in it. So this package would feed 2 people. Yep. And all you have to do, and then the other thing I love about the Ziploc is if you're camping or backpacking, you just pour boiling water from your Kelly kettle right in there, zip it up and let it sit there. And on average, it takes about 10 minutes to rehydrate. Depending on the size, we're gonna talk about that in a minute, depending on the size of the chunks that you cut up, that you prepare your food with.
Is that a quart? What size is that?
That is a quart, yep. And this is a 2 quart, and they do make 2 quart gusseted, they make gallons. I stick to these 2 because then I'm gonna talk about this in a minute. It's my vacuum chamber, and it won't take anything more than 2 quarts. This size, you can get bigger ones. Okay, so I put on your
Question
hand.
over here.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't priced the bags from the source you get them, but I buy them from a company called Uline,
Uline,
Oh, yeah.
and they have hundreds of styles, some with windows, some without windows, Ziploc, no Ziploc,
Okay, that's good to know.
colors, printed.
A lot of the YouTube channels say do not get them with the clear fronts because they're not as thick. And get the 7 mil, thank you, the 7 mil. And really, I have never been able to puncture one of these 7 mils except for with scissors. So I haven't freeze dried anything that after taking the air out, it's punctured. So I would go with the 7 mil, yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Can mice get through that?
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So you do need to put it in a tote that you completely tape up if it's going somewhere where you have mice, okay?
LDS Cannery also has gallon ones. I buy those. You can't always find them.
They have gallon Mylar. Nice. Like over here in Moroni?
No, like I get online and they're like out of stock, but they carry them, and also the oxygen absorbers.
Okay.
So you can just watch that.
Okay, good to know. And it really does make a difference what size oxygen package, like, you know, this is a quart, and so it'll tell you on your little chart what you need to put in a quart, 2 quarts. Other question?
Yes, you can also use number 10 cans. You could buy those empty, and maybe a couple of us could go in on one of those canners.
I just saw that Manti has a canner that we can use for free.
Where?
So if
Check
you,
it out.
yeah, you can check it out. So, how many of you get the Manti, citizens, their citizen meeting that meets on Tuesdays? You get that? Okay. Contact them and ask them about, cause they're the ones that mentioned it, there's a canner and that there's a source of cans to buy. And yeah, you're right, number 10 cans. Too bad they don't make them square, you know? They're so much more or space efficient when
Yeah,
they're
6
square,
in
not
a
round.
box.
Yeah, 6 in a box.
Linda and John Mount.
Okay, Linda and John Mount, so, okay.
They take their own time to do that. It would be nice if you would, if we could do something so we didn't have to depend on them so much. Linda's not doing well,
Oh, okay,
so.
okay. Yeah, well, that is one thing to think about. I remember, I joined the church when I was in college, and somebody in the ward said, hey, you wanna come over and use the dry pack counter? And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Oh yeah, it's in a trailer and everything. And I'm like, what? So I go over to their house and they've got this covered trailer and, you know, there's that machine and there are cans you can buy. And so it was like, wow, that was my first introduction to being able to control what I put in the number 10 cans instead of buying what was available. So yeah, they're good.
You can can presents.
Let's see. Okay, so it comes with the impulse sealer, okay? How many of you, besides Wendy, because Wendy liked mine so much, she bought one. This is, how many of you have seen a home vacuum chamber? No? Okay. Well, I'll tell you, they're more money. Right now, on Amazon, this one is $360. And so I kind of went, that's a lot of money. Yes?
Have you tried a food saver?
The food savers do not seal 7 mil Mylar. Yeah. And that brings up a good point. The food saver bags, the plastic ones, they are porous. They do not keep out air, moisture, or light like the Mylar does. So you can use it for short-term things, but for short-term, I'd rather use a canning jar. So let's cut this open.
Your food saver does have the wide and the narrow mouth
It
jar
does.
sealers.
It does.
But also, there used to be a thing called the pump and seal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I realized I'm just using the suction cup, so I got one of those window suction cups that you hang little things on
Yeah,
the windows.
yeah.
That was solid in the middle, and I just drilled a hole through the middle and then put my hose on that. And then I could use that to vacuum pack any, like a pickle jar or other ones that have those soft seal lids, and you can vacuum pack those just with that little Band-Aid like seal over the hole.
Cool.
And
Yep.
that little suction cup. And so you can vacuum pack just any size jar that has that soft seal on it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before I show you this, then let's. Where is my? Oh, dang! I used it tonight. I forgot to put it in here. Now you can buy a small electric. I've mentioned it on the resource page. It's electric vacuum sealer. It's not electric. It's actually you plug it in USB charge. It doesn't even take a battery. You just plug it into the wall and it holds the charge really well. And so it fits in your cupboard and it does both wide and small. You just screw off the wide and all of a sudden it's small and you put the wide back on and it's wide. Press a button and in 5 seconds the pints are done and in 10 seconds the quarts are done and the price is much more reasonable if you want to have it. I think they're like around $25 on Amazon. So they're so worth it because I like to have in wintertime where my carrots, and I didn't bring my celery, I like to have my soup and stew vegetables ready to just go and dump, right? Because you're getting them out of the garden, you're processing them anyways, why not, dice them up, stick them in a bag in the freezer, and when your trays are ready, just stick them in your freeze dryer, and then you've got the 97% of the nutritional value, right? So they lose more nutritional value in the freezer and in the fridge than they do once you get them freeze dried. So having that portable one that just goes in my cupboard, then I dump out my cup of carrots and suck that back down. So these just stay as super fresh, so it is so awesome. This does come like with the Seal-A-Meal, with a port inside, so you can, how many of you have never vacuumed, how many of you guys have never used one of these where the lids go down? You want to see it done? Okay, we'll do that first.
Marshmallows, because that was really awesome. To do marshmallows.
Till you
You
open
can
them
see,
up, and they
shrink up.
I do not have marshmallows.
I'm saying, I'm like, I don't eat them, but demonstration is awesome.
Will you plug this in over there for some reason?
Yeah.
It's not. Mm-mm.
Yeah, my grandkids love it. When they come over, that's what they want to do is seal the,
Well, and the cool thing about sealing marshmallows in a jar is, marshmallows get rock hard after about 6 months.
Doesn't take 6 months.
Oh, it doesn't take 6 months? Well, they don't when you put them in a jar and seal it and take the air out. They're just as soft and pliable a year later, so they're really good that way.
You're good to go, sweetie.
Okay. Are the lights on in the front there?
What about brown sugar?
Yep.
Does that seal up as well?
Brown sugar, yes. I buy brown sugar at Winco and I put it in jars with an oxygen pack in there and seal it up. And I just opened a jar that was 3 years old yesterday. Just as fresh and good, soft, just soft and good.
At the cannery, they don't have you put the oxygen pack in white sugar.
And why is that? Because I know,
It goes hard in the number 10 can. You never put the little pack in white sugar.
huh, okay,
So I'm glad to know you can do it with brown sugar.
I do it. And it doesn't go hard.
That's awesome.
I hate buying brown sugar. I don't make a lot of cookies, and that's about the only thing I would use it for. But you can also keep molasses on hand and stir it into white sugar and never post about it.
You can. Okay, so I put the lid on, I put the thing on.
I use molasses in my bread, so I have it by the gallon.
That was it, yeah. I know, I know, it is a lot faster. I mean,
missed it, can you do it again?
but you guys, you're gonna wanna see this though, so if you can't see from the back, come closer. Okay, this has been sealed with the Harvest Right Impulse Sealer, okay, we're gonna open that up.
Can I tip it up so everybody can see it, or should we have people come up?
No, cause it kinda, this needs to stay gripped to the sealing
Right.
bar.
Yeah.
I didn't need to pour them all out, I guess. Oh, and by the way, once you open a package, either a jar or a package, if there's an oxygen sealer in there, it's gonzo. So if you're only using a little bit, you're gonna have to put a new oxygen pack in there, okay?
So you should buy oxygen packs that come in small containers.
Yeah, or,
You can do that, but that's kind of awkward when you have 100 of them.
well, you can take 100 and open them up and put
And then buy.
20 in a
That's true.
canning jar and then suck out the air with your thing, just like
That's a
that.
good idea.
Okay, I'm telling you, come on up. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid. Go all around the table because this thing
You
is
gotta-
really.
yeah,
if
you gotta see
if
this.
you've
It's
not
pretty
seen
cool.
it before, it is amazing. So it gives you a progress bar in front. So like Lynn said, la 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 la. It's kind of boring.
This is taking the oxygen out, or the
Well,
air
it-
out,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Sounds like it's
Yeah,
gonna
the
go off.
sealing bar is up here.
And it's done.
Nope.
Oh.
This is the magic. Watch.
Yeah.
Oh. That is magic.
Shrink wrap.
amazing.
Look at that.
Wow.
So this product, the reason why I decided to spend this money, if I'm gonna go to all the work of doing a bunch of food in Mylar bags, I want it to last as long as possible. And this takes out so much more oxygen than the impulse sealer does with just an oxygen
Isn't
pack
this called
in
an
there.
impulse sealer?
Nope, this is called a vacuum chamber. And it's on the back under your, on the handout, under resources.
So you don't have a little oxygen thing in it too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, I always put one in.
Okay.
Yeah.
How
Just
much breakage do you get with this one?
breakage? You mean?
On the
How many
freeze-dried
apples
product?
snap into?
Oh, well, you can control, so if it's a delicate thing, you can control,
Control the amount of
yeah, there's levels 1, 2, and 3. And you can control the seal. So I put it on 2 for a 7 mil, but if I haven't ever done anything heavier than a 7 mil. So anyways,
So why would you use the Mylar versus the glass?
uh,
Long term, short term?
that's a good question.
If you're
The
backpacking?
glass is exposed to light. So you have to make sure it's going somewhere dark.
This is earthquake proof.
Yeah, this is earthquake proof, but you know. But the other thing about glass is the seals will eventually pop. Yeah, they will eventually leak.
the rubber that kind of
Yes.
fails.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, mine have failed, and that's my question.
Yeah.
Why do they not?
These are lighter for backpacking.
Yes. Yeah, these are great. So these are great for bug out bags or whatever.
Once you do this, use
Yeah, I just cut it open.
And then we reseal it with this.
This one doesn't. This one does. Okay, that's a really good point. Claudia wondered if this has a Ziploc on it. No, it doesn't. The ones that don't have Ziplocs are quite a bit cheaper. But the ones that have a Ziploc, if you were to use it in the chamber here, you don't want to completely zip it closed and put it in the chamber. You want to leave just a little tiny bit of air opening, and then it does a perfect job of sealing up. And even if you use this, the contents in here, if you still want to reuse the Mylar bag, you just cut it, and usually you can get 2 turns out of one of these, and then you've got to cut the zip off, but then you can keep going down and down. It's just like the seal-a-meal. You can make your own size thing. Okay, any more questions about this guy? I'll turn this one. Oh,
So when you use the Ziploc in there, you're sealing above the Ziploc.
yeah, yeah, it seals above the Ziploc. The bar automatically puts it up there. And you can get one seal, and then you can cut that open and use it again if it's, you know, something you can wash out real good. These wash out really good too, because they're so heavy duty. So you can get 2 usually above the zip, and then cut the zip off if you want to keep going down. Okay, this is kind of a handy little gadget. When you're using one of these guys, I'm gonna open this again. When you're filling this doesn't have a gusset, so it doesn't stand on the table very well. But this little guy will hold it open for you.
Oh, wow.
So then you can pour, and you know, it's not such a big deal with things like apples and stuff like that, but when you're doing pumpkin powder, oof, it can get kind of messy. So,
Spaghetti sauce or, yeah.
yeah, so if one of you guys has a star on your handout, I brought one of these for you. It's a red star.
Where is the red star?
Yep, on the cover. You're welcome.
Well, I have the red marker.
A winner.
I used to be a pampered chef consultant, so I always gave out lots of stuff.
When are you having your next party?
There was a question about meat, and you usually cook it before
Oh,
you
that's a
freeze-dry?
great question. You can do raw meat. I have never done raw meat because my idea for Lynn and I is to have food on the ready to go. We don't have any animals that we butcher. We buy people's cows and pigs and stuff. And so I stick that in the freezer, and then I just do batches and batches of meat. You're gonna get to try, this is grass-fed beef with just a little salt and pepper and an onion powder on it. And this you can just
And
dump.
it's raw.
No, it's
Oh.
cooked. Yeah, thank you. It's all cooked, but if you're trying to add more protein to your diet, Wait till you taste this. I mean, I like to just pour it out and eat it like, you know, as if it was jerky, but it's not greasy and doesn't have the preservatives sometimes.
Is it powder?
No, it's just ground beef that I do in my
Crumbles, yeah.
skillet. And, so you can just eat it in your hand, or you can add it to anything you want, which brings up the point, about different ways to, you can eat your freeze-dried stuff, right? Okay. You can eat it dry and crunchy. So you guys are gonna get to sample that, the ground beef. This is our Lynn and our adult boy's favorite, and it's freeze-dried grapes, okay? So grapes have a lot of sugar in them, so these take a fair amount of time to dry. Most things like the ground beef, the onions, the carrots, for me, and those of you who have freeze dryers, it takes about 24 hours for most things. But when you have something really liquidy or something with a lot of natural sugar in it, it takes a little bit longer, but that's okay. The longer, the better, the sweeter, because it really concentrates things down. So you can eat things dry and crunchy. Another way to amp up protein in your diet is if you can eat cheese, and you know, cheese has a culture in it. So cheese is a good gut food if you can tolerate dairy, and if you can't, then you use your non-dairy cheese.
How did you prepare that so that it's not sticking to each other?
This cheese that I bought, this is extra sharp, and it has potato starch as its non-caking agent. So cheese is one of the funnest, that's not even a word, it's one of the most fun things to freeze dry, because you can just get a package of pre-shredded cheese,
Pre-shredded, okay.
dump it out on your tray, freeze it and stick it in, and it's so rewarding. So, all right, so you can eat it crunchy. Okay, then you can add freeze-dried ingredients, dry or rehydrated, to recipes. So like we were talking about, the carrots and celery and onions, most of the time I don't rehydrate those because I'm adding them to something liquidy, soup, stews, things like that. Even spaghetti sauce, I'll still just use dried garlic and dried onions. And, but then there are a few times that I have rehydrated carrots, bell peppers for stir fry or something like that. And they rehydrate really good. Rehydrating things that are thick, like a piece of turkey or a steak or something, I would suggest going online and watching. I've given you some YouTube videos that I have learned most everything from. They are super good, and they've been around for 3 or 4 years, so they have lots of ideas. And so if you want to freeze dry steak or something thick, they show you how to rehydrate it, and it just takes a while to rehydrate, and sometimes it doesn't rehydrate very good. Like, let me give you for instance, macaroni and cheese, right? So you can make a version called chili mac that's like hamburger helper, I guess, with hamburger and macaroni and kind of a red savory sauce. But if you use elbow macaroni, regular size elbow macaroni, that's a pretty thick noodle. And so it never really, even with boiling water and closing the Ziploc and letting it sit there for 20 minutes, the noodles are still pretty darn chewy.
All done by.
Yeah, that's right. And they're already pre-cooked because the whole entree is pre-cooked. So if you want to do something like that, think about doing a mini elbow macaroni or the small shells, the small pasta shells, because they're open, so they hold more sauce and stuff, and so they rehydrate better. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is you don't want to, you want to have something to bite into, right? You don't want everything to be split pea pureed soup, but you want to make sure that your pieces are fairly small so they rehydrate pretty fast.
Is there an approximation of how much water to the dried product after you get it freeze-dried?
If you are a scientist, yes, you can take your tray and you can weigh it before it goes in the freeze dryer, and then you can bring it out and weigh it again and go, oh, it's exactly this much for this whole tray. But you know, once you get the hang of it, because you've got one, so you're going to be playing with it pretty soon. Once you get the hang of it, yeah. Wendy, do you ever weigh and?
No, I do a lot of so I grow a lot of tomatoes, so I do a lot of pureed tomatoes, I freeze dry that, and then during the winter and the next summer, I like make my own pizza sauce and tomato sauce and tomato paste. And it's just more, it's just like a trial and error.
Right.
Like if you add a little bit too much water, then, and you want it a little bit thicker, then you add a little bit more. That kind of thing.
Right.
A lot of it is just trial and error and just.
On page 2, there's exactly what she's talking about, tomato powder, okay? So this,
Right, I saw that.
so we are gonna talk about powders right now.
So, we made some spaghetti, and, I mean, there are a lot of things that, you know, it's soup. It doesn't matter
Right.
how much water you put in it. But
Right.
if you're reheating spaghetti, you don't want it soupy, and so you use a spray bottle, and you spray it, and you stir it, and you spray it, and you stir it.
Ooh.
And I've done that with diced chicken to go on my salad, and you can get it just right, because that's just a little bit of water at a time.
That is great. I know that's how I rehydrate cheese shreds if I'm putting them on a pizza or something, is I wet paper towels and lay them on the paper towels, and in 5 minutes, it's just like it came out of the package. Yeah, so watch those videos, because it's pretty cool. Okay, so the first and second pages of your handout are fruit and vegetable powders. So the cool thing about fruit and vegetable powders is, how many pumpkins do you think that whole, if this was full, well, I made you
Depends
some.
on the size of the pumpkin.
Oh, okay, but, yeah, true, that's true.
2 pumpkins.
Oh, well, okay, then let's equate this to a Libby can of pumpkin, okay? They're the same size, okay? 16 ounces. How many 16-ounce cans of Libby pumpkin do you think a whole thing of this pumpkin powder would be?
3.
2 or 3.
1.
10.
Whoa.
10 cans of pumpkin powder, and you can do it with your own pumpkin. I do it with butternut squash. And so you just do your butternut squash, however, in the oven or in Instapot, and you just steam it, and then you just mash the flesh and lay it out in your tray and freeze dry it, and then you put it in your high-speed blender and powder it up, right? But so you can store a lot more stuff powdered. So this pumpkin custard is just pumpkin pie filling without the crust, right? And what a great way to do your butternut squash. So my husband and I are born in Oregon, so we're Oregonians, and we got out of there.
Just in time.
Very wise.
But we lived in Western Oregon, where you could throw a seed out and it's Jack and the Giant Beanstalk, right? So we moved to Utah and we lived in Bountiful first, and that's at 5,000 feet in elevation, and the soil's really alkaline, and it's like, you can't plant until after Mother's Day. And I'm like, no, that's gotta be wrong. No, take our word for it. Yeah, snow in June. And so moving here and gardening at 6,000 feet has been kind of interesting. I tried sugar pie pumpkins, and they grow, but they just don't have the time. I haven't been able to get them, so they're super sweet. Whereas the butternut squash are super sweet, and they're so prolific, and even the squash bugs don't kill them off. And so I just decided I'm growing all butternut squash from now on. And so it powders up great, and you can use it so you can make, butternut squash soup. You don't have to prepare it, it's ready. You just pour it in with your chicken broth and some cream and some onions and nutmeg and salt and pepper. You can do so much with these fruit powders, and I won't go over them because I put it in your handout, so you've got that information.
Do you even buy garlic salt? It's like I buy garlic. I mean, and I would, see, we used to live in Western Washington where it's very damp too, and so I would take my container of garlic that has solidified after a while and use my little mortar and pestle and then put
Break it up again.
But I just, use garlic powder and put salt in because
Yeah, well, moving from western Washington and western Oregon to the dry country here, we don't, the moisture is not as bad. But the cool thing about garlic, I mean, you can powder garlic or dice it. I usually dice mine. You keep it in a jar right next to the stove, but you seal it down. You seal that lid down every time. It's going to stay loose and dry, and the flavor is going to keep its potency, whereas that gumped in cake thing that you're pestle and mortaring is really lost. You got to add the whole bottle practically to get any flavor. Claudia?
So when you use some of that.
Yeah.
And then you reseal it, do you have to keep putting the oxygen packing every time?
I don't when I'm doing my glass jars. Like I only have one glass jar of pumpkin at a time. I put the rest of it in Mylar bags, or if it's something like we're going into the fall and I know I'm gonna be making a lot of pumpkin pies or muffins or whatever, then I'll just put in a big one, and then when I need to refill my cupboard one, pour it in and seal them both down.
And you don't put oxygen in any jars?
I do if it's something that it's
Very
gonna be
long-term.
long term, yeah.
If
Like
you're
if-
using it, it's probably gonna be fine with that year.
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
When you're doing applesauce and squash, do you have to drain all of the liquid off first?
Okay, that's a good question. I've never freeze-dried applesauce. Yeah,
I have, don't do it.
don't do it. It doesn't, the texture's not good?
It's just, it comes out weird.
Okay,
Yeah, I wouldn't do applesauce.
okay,
Fruit leather
Apples,
instead.
sliced apples is great, but applesauce, I didn't like the texture of it, and I didn't like how it turns out.
okay. The squash, yes. When you do your squash, I just cut mine like in quarters, take out the seeds and stick it in my Instapot and steam it for a short while. You wanna make sure it's really soft, okay? But if you put it on a trivet or in a basket, all the liquid goes to the bottom. So then you scoop out the meat, put it in your blender and make a puree and put it in your freeze dryer, and the freeze dryer takes out the moisture. So then let's talk about rehydrating. So when I made this pumpkin pie, it called for 1.5 cups of pumpkin pie. So, tell me your name again. Pam. So like what Pam said, I took a cup of pumpkin and I added 1/2 cup of hot water. Nope, didn't give me 1.5 cups. And it was still a little thick. It wasn't like pumpkin out of the can, out of Olivia's can, right? So I added a little more water, and you give it a little bit of time to rehydrate each time, because it's gotta uptake that water. And then there was my 1.5 cups. So you do have to play with it, and like Wendy said, with the tomatoes, if you want it to be a certain consistency like paste, you start out with very little water, and then just add a little more, and then if you get it too liquidy, you add more powder. Okay, I wanna go to the tomatoes real quick. That's on the second page, that's on vegetables. Wait, is it on the first page? Fruit powder, vegetable powder, tomato powder, okay. So this is so awesome. You take your tomatoes right from the garden, cherry tomatoes, big tomatoes, whatever kind of tomatoes. Rinse them, and if they're big, you wanna just cut them in half or quarter them, and you put them in Ziploc bags. We're gonna forget about the plastic in our bodies right now, okay? And then you just zip all the air out as you can, and then stick them in the freezer. So, tomatoes come on and come on and come on, and you can just keep putting them in the freezer, putting them in the freezer, putting them in the freezer. Okay, then when you're ready or you have enough, you take them out of the freezer, you let them thaw on the counter, okay, let them completely thaw to they're mushy, then cut a hole in the bottom of that plastic bag, or if you want to keep the plastic bag, which is really smart too, can keep going with the tomatoes, dump them in a strainer and let the juice go out, okay? Tomatoes are like 80% water. They're super high in water, so you're not losing the flavor. You're getting left with the pulp. Put the pulp in your blender, and if you've got a high-speed blender like a Bullet or a new Vitamix is what I have. Anyways, you can get it so that there are no tomato seeds. I brought this one because this one is, a couple years old, and it's before I learned you need to drain all that water off. So it's really pretty thick, it's just your pulp going into the blender, and you turn it on and it will decimate the seeds even.
Does it get rid of the skin?
Yeah, it's gotta be a high school, it can't be like an old oyster.
It doesn't get rid of the
Vitamix.
skin, it blends up the skin.
Yeah, it pulverizes the skin, yeah, it obliterates it.
That's like my daughter did. She came to me and said, I made a smoothie, but I have pieces of kale in my smoothie. I said, sweetheart, that's because you grew up with a Vitamix and you have a blender now.
Oh,
The Vitamix will
Good
pulverize
point.
everything.
good point,
And the blender, and so she got her hands on a refurbished Vitamix.
good for her, Jane.
So with all this draining of the liquid.
Yeah.
You don't wanna lose any vitamins, minerals in the, so you could, I guess, make that into your soup, use some.
Yeah, some people do use that water. I'm so sick of tomatoes by the end of tomato season. I'm just like, let it go, cause here's all the good, here's all the good lycopene and, the fiber and everything in here. Okay, so that's powders. So that's another way. Okay, the third way to eat your food is by rehydrating complete meals. And so there's two ways to do complete meals. There's, I've got a sample over here of this Fiesta rice and chicken, and that was done component cooking. So I had rice, freeze-dried, just plain rice, and you wanna make sure, I usually use brown rice, but with brown rice, it's pretty chewy. It's got even after it's done, it's got a good bounce because it's got the bran around in there. So if you want to rehydrate something, if you want it really rehydrated, white rice is the way to go. Okay, and then I took frozen chicken breasts, dumped them in the Instapot, and just added a jar of salsa. It can be any kind of salsa. You don't have to have homemade salsa, just clean ingredient salsa. And then just cooked it, right, for 16 minutes, took it out and shredded it, put it on the freeze dryer tray, freeze dried it, brought it out, and so this is just chicken and salsa, and you won't believe how much flavor's in here. So these are two components, rice, salsa chicken, and then just freeze-dried cheese, okay? And I have chives, they're so easy to grow. I have freeze-dried chives, onions, bell peppers, so you can jazz it up if you want to. Tonight you're just getting these three so you can just see what a simple thing component cooking can be. I don't do a lot of component cooking because I like to cook, so I just like my regular staples in my cupboard, regular rice and things like that. But component cooking is these are components, the stuff for soup, carrots, celery, and onions. But a lot of people do tons of, they pre-do all their beans, and they pre-do a lot of components because that works for them. So that's component cooking, and then complete meals is when you make a batch of chili or you make a batch of spaghetti and meat sauce, and then you put that on your freeze-dry tray and you freeze-dry that. That's a complete meal that you just add water. Even though you just add water to this, you just have to combine stuff. So you have to figure out what works for you. So I don't even have any Thrive freeze-dried food, but on their website, they always have kind of good recipes for component cooking. So I threw that on there so you could see what some ideas for component cooking are in that. Okay, let's go to this page and then we'll be ready to have some samples. Good, we're almost at an hour. Okay, freeze-dried complete meals. You control your diet. You travel in the car, or you're going someplace on vacation or whatever, and your gut's used to eating certain kinds of food, and it's really nice to have backup good food. So whether that's just dry crunchy stuff you're eating, you can freeze dry yogurt. And when you freeze dry yogurt or anything with a probiotic, prebiotic. You want to lower the dry temperature to 90 degrees because that won't kill the good stuff for your gut. But my kids have all had babies. Mom, can you make us yogurt drops? You know, the babies eat the little yogurt drops. Oh my gosh, you fill a gallon Ziploc bag with yogurt and you cut out the little point and just go, and you can make yogurt drops galore, you know, and I make homemade yogurt, so it's even better, right? And so, so you can control your food. That's what I love about this. Okay, make sure all the ingredients are in small pieces for best hydration. And here's a tip. I mean, we love chili, but using black beans or the small red beans, not even kidney beans or anything that size. You can, but it takes a lot longer to rehydrate. And the small beans are just like that. They're super, super great.
My sister discovered this on accident. She put those really hard dry beans that had been sitting around forever, right? And it normally take forever to soak or pressure can. She just put them in the vacuum thing with water, and they softened up so fast because you vacuum all the air out and then the water just.
So she put the beans in a jar and added
and with water, and then vacuum packed that, and the water, the air was sucked out, and the water went right into the beans. And
Hey, that's cool.
really fast.
Because who among us doesn't have beans from when we got married in the 1980s?
However, you still need to cook them. There's a certain enzyme that's not good for you that has to be cooked, but
Yeah.
it's a great way to soften them up real fast.
Okay, that's cool.
You're supposed to be able to soften them with baking soda, and that helps too.
Yeah, I've tried that and haven't had a lot of luck with that, but just soaking them, just getting fresh beans and then putting, you know, if you're doing long-term storage for beans, making sure that you're using Mylar in a plastic bucket, or the cans, like from the, you know, what do they call it, what do they call the food storage? Family, whatever, food storage. Yeah, the one over in Moroni. The Bishop Storehouse. No, it's not the Bishop Storehouse.
Family home storage.
Say it again, Chris.
I think it's family food storage.
Family, okay. Anyways, they're fresh and they put an oxygen pack in there. All right, so yeah, so then there's resources on the back. And I guess one last thing we don't have any chickens right now. We have had chickens. How many of you have chickens or have had chickens? Okay, a lot of people love to freeze dry their excess eggs as spring comes on and the production starts in full. And when you do eggs, whether you do them raw, you know, you whip them up and you put them in the freeze dryer in a raw slurry, or you scramble them ahead of time and cook them. With the raw, you're reconstituting. You're not rehydrating, you're reconstituting. You're making it back into like what a whipped raw egg would be. And so you'll see this in any freeze drying books you get, or on YouTube it'll tell you how to reconstitute eggs. So there's a difference between rehydrating and reconstituting.
I used to just put the powder in with dry ingredients and then
Yeah,
the water.
with baked, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. You don't have to reconstitute. Okay, this book is a really good book for beginners. So if you are a newbie, this would be a really good book to get. Harvest Right has a new cookbook out, and I've looked through that, and it's really nice. But again, about half of it is full of like entree recipes, and I don't need new entree recipes, you know. I can make fried rice and spaghetti and chili and soup and freeze dry it just fine. So if you want different recipes, entree recipes, the Harvest Right book is good for that too. And so tonight, what we're doing.
Is that book on this list?
Yeah, it's the very bottom.
Oh, right there.
I've even heard that some backpackers like to get their favorite restaurant dishes that they really love, and then they freeze dry those and take them out and have their favorite
Wow.
dish out while they're camping.
How deluxe.
Yeah.
No more turkey tetrazzini, huh? All right, well, so we are going to, my husband and I are gonna, dish out some samples for you guys. So, oh yeah, go ahead.
We had a little problem with ours and the vacuum wouldn't seal.
Uh-huh.
And so they have a new policy now at Freeze, Harvest Fresh, where they will send you by email instructions on how you repair that. And then you can buy the parts from them and the instructions tell you how to repair it. So, that is their new policy, you repair your own, in case anyone
Just for
has
that?
difficulty with them.
Just for that particular not getting a vacuum, because that's so common.
I think for anything.
You're
So,
talking about the
just be
vacuum
aware
pump?
of that.
You're talking about the vacuum pump?
Well, she's talking about the vacuum not holding its seal. And so, it's pretty common, and yes, sometimes it can be the vacuum pump, sometimes it can be the valve that you toggle on and off to let the air in and out. There's a number of things. Raise your hand if you have a freeze dryer and you've had some kind of problem with it. Yeah. Everybody still has their hair in here, so you don't completely pull your hair out. But yeah, we won't get into problems because I don't know how to fix them, that's for sure. I'll just tell you that when I bought my freeze dryer in 2021, it came with the $300 pump with the silver and green on the front. Yours probably has blue, huh? Or red and blue?
I just upgraded to their brand. I've been
Oh.
using the old one,
Okay,
and I've replaced that 3 times.
okay. Well, we've had to replace the pump that came with it. We bought another one for $300 and we had problems with that. This is over a period of from 2021 to 2024. So we decided to buy the premium pump, which now comes with the freeze dryer for $2,500. And we bought it from Harvest Right in North Salt Lake. And when we went there to pick it up, they had a whole bunch of refurbished ones for half price. And I go, is this the same warranty? And they said, yeah, it's the same warranty as a new one. And so we bought a half price one, and I haven't had one problem for a whole year, and I freeze dry quite a bit. So the premium pump, the green pump, not the oilless one, not the black one, apparently that has a lot of problems or kind of nitpicky things about it, but that premium or premier, it's, what?
Premier.
Van, okay, premier. That, no headaches, no problems at all, so.
The Harvest Right employees are keeping the old ones for themselves.
The old ones that have problems?
Yeah, the old original ones, they're saving them in their private stock and selling the new ones. I've imported several from China, which are exact duplicates of theirs.
Yeah,
I make it in oil filter systems, so you're not playing with multiple jugs, and
you make that to sell?
so I say that it's a standard vacuum pump,
Yeah,
nothing special.
yeah,
They're just, last time I was there, they had a bunch of them that they wouldn't sell because the employees are keeping them for themselves. And now you pay the $800 and some odd for the
new one,
new one.
interesting.
We're gonna need your name and number.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm considering rebuilding them, and they're not that expensive to rebuild. If I can work a deal with China, then I'll import all the parts and pieces. It's been a little touchy with China in the past month. But I've got a lot of parts and pieces on order that will be here from our oil filtration systems. So you're not playing with the multiple jugs and coffee filters and Brita filters and who knows whatever else has come up.
What is your name and phone number?
I am Kim Ware,
Spell the last name.
W-A-R-E, 801 842 3054.
Jane, could you put that in the, next, email you sent out? Can you put Kim's info in there? Okay, so tonight you're getting some pumpkin custard, you're getting a, chocolate muffin, but it's mostly, for the sweetener, it's reconstituted banana powder. So each muffin, well, you're only getting a small piece, but there's a lot of people, so we'll give you this much, quarter. Each muffin only has a quarter of a teaspoon of sugar. Well, I mean, there are a few chocolate chips in there, but other than that, they're dark chocolate.
They don't count.
Yeah, they don't count. So anyway, so reconstituted banana, reconstituted pumpkin, apples, grapes, some sharp cheddar, and a little bit of beef.
Can you do slices of cheddar? Because I found you can do lunch meat, and if it's dehydrated, you can make fresh lunch meat sandwiches out when you're camping.
That's awesome, yeah.
It's edible, but
I've
it's kinda like a cracker.
Yeah, but I reconstitute it and then I put it on. I just wondered if the sliced cheese would work if you
Yeah, it does.
reconstitute.
You
Well,
don't want
I've
it too
seen
thick.
it on YouTube.
You don't want it too thick, but yeah, you
Okay.
can.
Thin slice.
You can do cubes, cube of cheese.
Well, I'm thinking of, having a ham and cheese sandwich out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, okay, does anybody else have anything they wanna share?
Oh, this is great.
Why don't you guys come up